So I'm Barb Demorest, and I'm here to tell you a story of nothing wasted. What if God could use exactly what you have to accomplish something really big? I was in my late 50s. I'm 65 now, so you don't have to guess. And I was feeling really dull. I was feeling empty. I was wondering, God, what do you have for me? I felt there was no passion, and I didn't have a purpose, but yet I thought, surely God has a purpose for me in the senior years of my life. I mean, people were asking me, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, retire? What am I going to do? So I prayed to God, and I said, God, give me a passion and a purpose. It was not too long after that when I heard the words that no woman wants to hear, you have breast cancer. When I heard that, I thought, oh, man, I hope I don't lose my hair. And right along with it, I hope I don't have to have a mastectomy. Well, I did have to have a mastectomy, and I thought, it's still going to be okay. Nobody really needs to know because I can be immediately reconstructed. Well, due to complications, that didn't happen. And so I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I really wasn't prepared for the physical and the emotional impact of mastectomy. I thought, it's only a breast, it's not that big a deal. But it was when the doctor was unwrapping my bandages for the first time, and he said to me, he says, you know, many women don't want to look yet, they're not ready. And I thought, whoa, what is it? Is it that bad? So I didn't look. Later I did, though. And what I saw was ugly. I was ashamed, and I was embarrassed, and I hadn't let anybody in because I was strong. I could handle this. And then I was ashamed that I was ashamed. I mean, we're not supposed to be ashamed. You know, we all are supposed to love our bodies and accept them as they are. And so I was in bed one night, and I just woke up, and I was just sobbing. I was just sobbing. It was just from deep within. And my husband says, what's the matter? And I said, I think I've made a terrible mistake. I shouldn't have let this happen. And he just hugged me. And he said, it'll be all right. And once again, I was ashamed that it mattered. It shouldn't matter. It's only a breast. It's not an arm or a leg. It's only a breast, Barb. It shouldn't matter. So later, I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to wear so I can get back to life, so that I can appear normal? And so I called the local support center, and I'll never forget the voice on the other end of the line. She said, oh, honey, I am so sorry, but you can't put anything on that scar for at least 6 weeks. And I was like, 6 weeks? I need to get back to life. I want to be normal. 6 weeks. So it was later that week that I went to the doctor, and I picked up a brochure. And the brochure was for a traditional breast prosthetic made out of silicone. And I was holding that brochure in the doctor's office, and he said to me, he said, you know, most women are not really happy with that as a solution. They can be hot and heavy and sticky. Can't wear them for quite a while. Got to order them. They're expensive. And you need a special bra. And just women just generally aren't happy with them. And so I looked at him and I said, well, what am I going to do? And he looked at me, and bless his heart, he says, do you knit? And I was like, yeah. Why? And he says, well, I've never seen one. But a patient has told me about such a thing called a knitted knocker. I rushed home And I got on the phone and I called my dear friend Phyllis, who's sitting right over there. She's an expert knitter. Now, I'm a knitter, but I was too sick at that point to knit my own. And I said, hey, Phyllis, have you ever heard of a knitted knocker? And she said, no, but I'll find out. So the next week, I ventured out into public for the first time. I stuck a sock in my bra, I put on a loose-fitting jacket, and I went to church. I was very self-conscious. And here comes Phyllis, tripping into church with a Victoria's Secret bag. And she handed it to my husband, and she says, Denny, give this to Barb, but don't look in the bag. So he found me, and I took that bag into the bathroom, and I knew what was in there. And I took out of that bag the most beautiful knitted knocker. It was soft, it was light, it was beautiful. I could wear it in my bra, not an old lady mastectomy bra. Now, don't get me wrong, they do make nice ones, but that was my perception. And it was made by somebody who cared. So I took that sock out and I plopped this in my bra, took off that jacket, and I re-engaged with life. I know it sounds dramatic, but it was life-changing to me. And I knew immediately that we needed to provide these to the doctor's offices. So when women came in, feeling all dejected and despondent and wondering what they were going to do, that they could pick one out and take it home with them. So I talked to my doctor and I said, if we provide these to you, would you hand them out? And he said, yes, we would love to. Is that funny? I don't know. And so we got knitting. Phyllis got knitting. I reconnected with some knitting groups in town, and we started knitting knockers. And we started providing them to the doctor's offices, and they loved them. And we thought, you know what? There's a lot of mastectomies done a year in the United States. There's 50,000 of them, to be exact, done every year. 90% of those women will wear a breast prosthetic at least for a while. And there's 1 million women living in the US right now who have had a mastectomy and not been reconstructed. How can we ever meet that demand? But you know what? This is so great. We should try to reach out and help others to make these for their communities. So I created a website, knittedknockers.org, and we posted the pattern. Phyllis had revised the pattern and made it really great, and we posted that, and then Phyllis and I filmed a video tutorial where she was the expert and I was the comic side relief, you know. But anyway, those patterns, I'm just going to jump forward and tell you, have now been downloaded 500,000 times. You know, Phyllis was making so many knitted knockers. I think she, at that time, I don't know, maybe 400. I'm sure she's well past that. I know she's knitting on them right now. She never wastes any time. Anyway, most women wanted these beige colors. That's what I wanted. One day, Phyllis, I think she got bored. Okay, there was this hairy knocker. It wasn't this one, but it was very similar, that appeared in the bag. And it was purple with green hair and orange specks in it. And you know, I thought, oh my gosh, Phyllis, what is she thinking? Nobody's going to want that. I can't send that out to anybody. And so, but I thought, well, I'll put it in the basket that goes to the doctor and maybe somebody will pick it out. Well, it wasn't any time at all, and I get this email from a woman from Blaine. And she says, you know, I was in at my doctor's office and I was all depressed and dejected and wondering what I was going to do. And the doctor brought out this bag of knitted knockers. And she said, I looked through the bag and there was one jewel that shone brighter than the rest. It was purple and hairy and had orange specks, and it made me smile at a really difficult time of my life. And she went on to say, and my friends just marvel at the beauty of it when I whip it out and show it to them. So, on our website, we had put where women could order their knitted knockers. They can order their size, A, B, C, D, double D, a color choice. And we're knitting away, and we've been working on inspiring and equipping knitters all across the country to provide for their own communities. And the demand was just soaring. And, you know, we thought, gee, this is great, isn't it? That we're giving these nice, comfortable gifts to these people. We give them away free. But what we didn't anticipate was the void that we were filling was more than physical. It was emotional. The pain and the suffering and the feeling of inadequacy and the humiliation and the embarrassment, along with the physical pain of the scar tissue, the burned skin from radiation and putting a heavy prosthesis on there. We heard story after story from these women when they would order their knitted knockers, because you don't talk about this in public. Like me, they're ashamed to be ashamed, you know? You don't talk about it, you don't share with. But here, they knew we understood. I had posted a video of my story, and I would hear it over and over and over. Just, oh, your story is my story. And so it became a place of healing. And you know, the demand went up. We were sending out hundreds a month. And we were like, okay, how do we keep up with this? And somebody said, couldn't you just manufacture these and sell them cheap? They're so great. And the answer is, well, yeah, but no, because it would lose too much. One of the important parts of this was the fact that somebody cared. Somebody cared. We were becoming Phyllises to somebody. Complete strangers would care enough to make you this gift, to bring you some comfort and dignity for no personal benefit. Nobody was getting a paycheck. They did it because they cared. And beyond that, the other side of the equation, those of us that are making knitted knockers and sharing it, we know that we're making a difference. We're bringing comfort and dignity to somebody. And we all need a purpose. So, no, we're not going to manufacture. And I like to tell the story of Anne. Every Wednesday, a group of ladies, about 25 women, meet at Apple Yarns here in Bellingham, and we gather up the knockers that have been knit and sent to us, and we stuff them and we process them and we send them out, and we just have a great time. It's party time, it's fun time. Well, Anne comes, an elderly woman, and she quietly sat down and she just started to crochet, and she did not say a word. Well, when we were done, I followed her out to her car and I said, Anne, I just want to thank you so much for coming today. It was great having you. And she looked at me and she said, you know, I lost my husband a few years ago and I've been grieving terrible ever since. And she said, I've gone to support groups, I've gone to grief counseling, I've tried everything, and nothing has helped. Like knowing that I can still make a difference with what I have. So no, we're not going to manufacture these. We're not going to lose that. So the phone rang one day. It was Philippa, the founder of the Breast Cancer Initiative of East Africa from Rwanda. And she says, Barbara, there is great myth and stigma surrounding breast cancer in East Africa. Many women believe that if you talk about it, you'll get it. Others believe that it's a white person's disease. It's a curse to have your breast cut off. So mastectomy being the main form of treatment there because of the lack of preventative care, mammograms, radiation and chemo is very limited. Mastectomy is the main form of treatment. And it's a curse. The worst curse you can tell somebody, she said, is may your mother's breast be cut off. I was stunned. She said, we bring breast prosthetics from the United States to them, and they shun them. She said, because they're hot and they're heavy, they're made out of silicone, the rats eat them, and they're not of their skin color. She said, do you think knitted knockers would work for the women of Rwanda? And I said, yes. I've always thought that these would be great for third world countries. And she said, well, our women know how to knit, but they can't read the patterns. Can you come and show us? And I said, well, immediately I knew deep down that my answer was yes. But my husband and I had just been talking about, you need to scale back. I had retired in the interim, but I was working harder than I ever was for a paycheck. But the rewards were way, way more. So we talked about scaling back, and this would not be scaling back. So I said to Philippa, I said, I want to talk to my husband. So that night I shared it with Denny. And he says, Barb, you've got to go. And I said, yeah, but that's not scaling back. And he said, but you've got to go. And then I said, but we don't have any money for that. You know, we're all volunteers and donations. We'd have to pay for it ourselves. Barb, you have to go. I'll work a little longer before I retire. So we went. 3 white elderly women. All we had to offer was we knew how to knit knockers. And you know, we went and we stayed in homes. It was 2 weeks and it was hot and it was miserable. But we trained 30 Rwandan women who came from the villages. They were poverty-stricken. They were genocide survivors. They were AIDS positive. These women came from all ages, but they came to learn how to make a difference to their fellow women. So we spent 2 days training those women. We were there 2 weeks, and one Rwandan woman shared with me. She's the third from the right in the blue dress. She shared with me. She said, you see me today and I'm beautiful. You would have seen me back then and I was a mad cow. She said, my family was murdered in the genocide. I was raped by a soldier that was HIV positive. I was sick. And I was angry, and I was hurt, and I was without hope. And she said, the Rwandan Women's Network came alongside of me, and they offered hope. They gave me medicine. They cared for me. They showed me how to make a living. But most of all, they showed me hope. And the reason I'm here is because I am caring about others. And so it's about that. That's why I am beautiful today. And you would have called me a mad cow if you'd seen me before. So what we thought we were doing was we were coming and teaching some women how to make knitted knockers for their fellow women. Well, God had a much bigger plan. We met with the Minister of Health because the novelty of these 3 white women with these funny breasts that are knit, the TV came and they filmed us and they put it on the national TV. And then the newspaper, the national newspaper, picked it up and wrote an article about it. And so the Minister of Health invited us to come. And so because of that meeting, the Minister of Health is now on the advisory board of the BCIEA with a commitment to reach out and educate and dispel the myths and stigma around breast cancer in their country. And she's committed to, by the end of this year, 2017, having a second mammogram machine in the country. In addition, we got invited to the largest hospital in the country. And we had a meeting with the CEO of the hospital. And he picked up this knitted knocker that we had shown him. And he started to cry. And Lorraine and I were looking at each other like, oh, okay. And he said, just yesterday, he said, I had a woman in who needed to have a mastectomy. And she said, no. And he said, It's your breast or your life. And I had nothing to offer her. We need these. And before we left, they had made a commitment to pay the women to knit these, to give them a livelihood, to support themselves, to pay for those knitted knockers and then give them free to their women. And he said, we need to get this in all the hospitals. So God took 3 old white knitters there and made a difference. You know, God used exactly what we had. Little money, old bodies, and an ability to knit to pull off something really big. So we came back, and you know what? The phone rang again. And this time it was Dear Abby, the advice columnist. And so Dear Abby, she says, you know, we got this letter, and it said you'd be doing millions of women a great service if you would let them know about the good work that Knitted Knockers is doing. And she said, I just want to make sure that you're okay with running this because we have 100 million readers. And that you would be able to keep up with it. So I thought, okay, we got 250 groups out there making them. We've got 90 state providers. We're giving away 1,000 a month. Oh yeah, go ahead and run that. It'll be fine. We can do it. We can handle it, right? Well, December 6th, that letter ran. The orders started coming in at $250 an hour. At 9 a.m., our Gmail shut down, our email. Who knew that Gmail limits you to 2,000 emails a day? So we were stressed. We thought we could do it, but you know what? We couldn't. We had our little managers meeting. We go, what are we going to do? And one of our volunteers looked at me and she says, Barb, you have no one. All you have is a bunch of 75-year-old women. This is impossible. We can't do it. I went home and I cried out to God. I said, God, we have no one. All we have is a bunch of 75-year-old women. What are we going to do? It's not possible. We can't do it. And I whined to my son. And my son said to me, Mom, God uses the nobodies to do his greatest work. He said, think of Gideon. So I looked it up in the Bible. Judges chapter 6. God said to Gideon, I want you to go in and I want you to take out the Midianites and recapture this land for the Israelites. And Gideon says, what? I'm the least and I'm the weakest of the tribe. Why would you ask me to do that? I've only got 30,000 men. Go against the Midianites. That's crazy. I can't do it. It's too much. And God says, well, that is too much. You only need 300. And he says, and you know what? He said, God said to Gideon, go in the strength you have. Am I not sending you? And I thought, okay, go in the strength you had. So I started looking at the strengths we had. We had Anne, the grieving woman, grieving over the loss of her husband, crocheting knockers right along. Mara, who has little kids at home and a husband that's gone a lot traveling for work. And she's making labels at night, late into the night, the mailing labels and the shipping labels so that we can send them out. I thought of Crystal, whose husband has dementia and has said to me, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have Knitted Knockers, a way to give back and to help. And she provides the support to our state providers. I thought of Lorene, who had no money to go to Africa, but she said, I'll raise it. And she baked goods to raise the money. And that same Lorene who saw me one day at a table writing notes, and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing thank you notes to the people that take the time to make these knockers. We need to thank them. And she says, give me that. You don't have the time to do it. So she writes those thank you notes. I thought of the 94-year-old woman in the nursing home who emailed me and said, you know, I can hardly see, but with a magnifying glass, I can still make knockers, and I can still make a difference. And I thought about Deborah, retired from a domestic abuse hotline, who makes our phone calls and listens to the stories of the women that call in. And Candace and all our state leads and the class of 68 that come and stuff every week. And I could just go on and on. And you know, when all was said and done, we filled all 10,000 of those orders. You know, go in the strength you have. Am I not sending you? You know, it's God gets the glory for that, because we are in ourselves nobody. We have very little to offer. I recently did an interview for Good Housekeeping magazine that will come out this fall. They said, "It's amazing what you have done, taking a great idea and your experience and expanded it to reach hundreds and thousands across the world." No, what is really amazing is that God can use exactly what we have to pull off something really big. He took my shame and my embarrassment and my desire to have a passion and a purpose in my life to make a difference to so many people. That's what's amazing. So we get these testimonies from people all the time, and I just want to read a couple of them to you. "My boyfriend found you. I'm having my mastectomy tomorrow, and I cannot tell you how hugely this has lifted my mood. It's so sweet and comical and beautiful. It's the only thing I'm looking forward to besides hopefully being cancer-free. I don't know any of you, but love you already. Thank you, lovely ladies, so much." And then, "These are for my wife. She is struggling after surgery, and I would like something to help her understand that I still love her and find her gorgeous. Maybe this will help her feel the same about herself." So it's a mystery to me how God does it, using a simple thing like a knit breast form to reach out and touch lives, from that 90-year-old woman in a nursing home to a young husband concerned over his struggling wife, to the elderly woman grieving over loss, to hospitals seeking to bring some comfort to their patients, to genocide survivors in Rwanda removing myths and stigma of breast cancer. You know, God chooses the simple and exactly what we have to show his love in big ways. So recently, my son asked me, he says, "Mom, if you could go back and not have ever had breast cancer, would you do that?" And I answered, "No, I wouldn't, because you see me now and I'm beautiful. I have a passion and a purpose beyond my wildest imagination. The thousands of women who have been impacted by these gifts of comfort and dignity, along with those who have a purpose helping others, is priceless. I wouldn't change a thing." So would you pray with me? God, help us to realize that you have a passion and a purpose for each of our lives, and that nothing is wasted. May we understand that it's not about how great and capable we are, but rather what you can do with what we have to offer. God, thank you that you can use the nobodies of this world to accomplish great things. Amen.